Mayor, the meeting is now being recorded.
Okay, the closed session meeting will now reconvene at 6:09 p.m. City Attorney, can you please read the closed session report?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. The City Council is now back in open session, having met in closed session to discuss the two items listed on the agenda. Staff provided a report for both, but no reportable action was taken. This concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, City Attorney. If there's no objection by the City Council, I will go ahead and adjourn the closed session council meeting at 6:09 p.m. Good evening and welcome to the Monday, June 12, 2023, 6 p.m. regular joint meeting of the Bell Garden City Council and Successor Agency to the Community Development Commission. The meeting will now come to order at 6:10 p.m. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting live online through the city's website as noted on the agenda. If any of the members should have a conflict of interest, please announce any item you're recusing from due to a conflict of interest prior to the item being heard. Tonight's invocation will be given by Pastor Reynaldo Leal, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by our city manager.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, and all the fine councilmen and councilwomen, our city manager, our chief, and our citizens. It is good to be here. I was out on the over the weekend in a conference, a church conference, and I thought I wasn't going to make it. I just got off the Uber and just ran down here. So I'm glad to be here. It's always a great blessing to see each one of you and also our citizens. And I would just like to remind you that the Bible says in John 13:14, that whatever we ask in his name, he will do it. So let us bow our heads. Remember, as we pray, we come into the presence of God. May he be gracious upon this meeting. Father, we want to thank you for this great opportunity that you give us just to be here. Thank you for our leaders. Thank you for the employees that make the city work. Thank you for each one of us, Father, that are here, for our police department. And Father, we give you this meeting. May your grace, may your wisdom, may your presence be upon each one of the speakers and those that take responsibility in the direction of our city. Father, just give them the grace and the wisdom that they need. Father, we ask this in the name of Jesus. And can we say amen? Thank you.
Everyone, please rise, face the flag, place your right hand over your heart, and say the pledge with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk, can we please call roll of the members of the City Council and Successor Agency?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Members of the Council and Successor Agency, Barcena.
Present.
Councilmember Chavez.
Present.
Councilwoman Pulido.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Vice Chair Sanchez.
Present.
And Mayor Chair Cortez.
Present. Moving on to presentation, City Manager, can you please announce the first presentation?
Mayor, if it's okay if we take the presentations out of order and start with the proclamation?
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you, Mayor. So the first one we'll start with is a proclamation in honor of the observance of Juneteenth. With that, I'll turn it over to Councilmember Chavez.
Thank you so much for that, City Manager. Proclamation in honor of Juneteenth Day of observance. Whereas Juneteenth is the oldest known celebration commemorating freedom for slavery in the United States. And on June 19, 1865, more than 2 years after President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, word finally reached Galveston, Texas, that slaves were free. And on June 18, 2021, President Joe Biden proclaimed Juneteenth as the 12th federal holiday to be observed on June 19th. And on Juneteenth, we commit ourselves to the work of equity, equality, and justice, and commit together to eradicate systemic racism that still undermines our founding ideals and collective prosperity. And Juneteenth is an observance celebrated with traditions handed down through many generations, including family gatherings and picnics, music, stories told by elders and local historians, speeches and recognitions of prominent individuals who have made significant achievements and contributions to the community. And it is time to reflect. It is time for reflection and rejoicing, a time for assessment, self-improvement, and for planning the future. And let's join together in celebration of freedom, family, and community, of embodying a spirit of peace, respect, brotherly love to honor and salute our city's rich cultural legacy and diversity. Now, therefore, be resolved that the mayor of the city of Bell Gardens and with the city council do hereby proclaim June 19th and annually thereafter as Juneteenth Day in the city of Bell Gardens, and urge all citizens to reflect and celebrate this very important day in our nation's history and commit to redacting ourselves to the ongoing work of guaranteeing liberty and equal rights to all Americans. Proclaim this 12th day of June 2023.
Thank you, Councilmember Chavez, for reading that.
Mayor Cortez, the next item is a certificate of recognition for the Bell Gardens Intermediate Dance team for their winning of the Sierra Regional Championship. And with that, I'll turn it over to Councilmember Barcena.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. You know, we were supposed to have the Bell Gardens Intermediate dance team here today, but I don't think they showed up. Are they here? Can I hear the dance team? Yeah. You guys, I want to say congratulations for doing such an amazing job. And I have more comments, but I'm going to go ahead and read this beautiful certificate that we made for you in order to recognize your efforts. Okay? So the city of Bell Gardens hereby expresses its gratitude for you for your outstanding commitment and devotion through the art and instruction of dance in the city. Thank you for the positive influence you are to the community and to the students in Bell Gardens Intermedia. And this is mentioning somebody very special that is also here with us today, but in general, it's for the students, because the students are the driving force behind this beautiful art form that is dance. You guys are special, and you guys have a mission to help spread this beautiful dance that you do in the city of Bell Gardens and then beyond once you graduate. So we wish you continued success in all of your future endeavors. And this is signed by none other than our mayor, Alejandra Cortez. So let's give you guys a round of applause real quick. And Madam Mayor, if I may, I do have some comments. So Mr. Mendoza, who is a dance instructor, is here with us today, I believe. And he told me, I don't want to have anything to do with it. This is all about the students. And I really, really appreciate that. But you know what? We also have here today with us one of the moms, Ms. Rosario Luna, who feels so grateful that you guys have such a great instructor. And I have to agree with her, so I can't hide it. And I must say that we're very proud of Mr. Mendoza for doing everything that he does in our community. So thank you, Mr. Mendoza, for everything that you do. I appreciate it. And having said that, that resumes my comments, but we will be taking a picture and we'll be giving you your certificate as soon as we're done with some other awesome comments from the council. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Barcena, for presenting that certificate. I think the entire council had this idea of honoring and recognizing all of you for your tremendous work throughout the year. And also to recognize Mr. Mendoza. Ever since I was a student at BGI many years ago, his program has been known and many students have crossed his program. And it has done wonderful things, not only in the aspects of teaching you dance, but also of giving you a safe space, giving you and your families, a sense of belonging when sometimes, growing up may be very difficult. So we do want to give a big round of applause to Mr. Mendoza and his team that have done this wonderful job with all of you. But also, we also want to recognize your parents that have been an integral part of this program. I'm sure without them, you wouldn't be as successful as you are. So also big round of applause to family members, parents, friends, anybody who supported. And just with that, the city is very proud to have such an amazing dance team, to have all of you represent us in different competitions. Even though MUSD is a different entity from us, you are our students here in the city, and we are obliged to recognize your efforts and just to highlight you, even if it's just a little certificate, a little moment here at City Council. Know that your efforts are being honored and that we're seeing all the hard work that you're putting in, and we're so very proud of you. But now I'm going to open it up for the rest of my colleagues.
I'm so jealous of all of you because of your skill. I can't tell you how many times Mendoza, and he's a dear friend of mine, how many times he tried to teach me how to dance. And as amazing as he is, it just didn't work with me. But I can see how every year the show just keeps getting better, and you just wonder, like, how can the show get better? And then it happens again. Thank you so much for putting up, bringing us this entertainment and showing us that you are very talented, you're skilled, you're dedicated. As our mayor said, it's just the feeling of family, that you come together, you begin as friends, classmates, but you collaborate so well, and it shows. I also want to recognize Ryan Sanchez, because everyone did a phenomenal job, but he brought Bollywood to Bell Gardens. When I saw that performance, I could not believe my eyes. He did such an amazing job. And I just want to take a moment. Is he here? Yeah. Beautiful performance, amazing. Thank you so much for allowing me to see such a beautiful show. Thank you so much.
It's been years since I've had the opportunity to work with Mr. Mendoza and his dance team. I know when I used to work for After School All Stars and we had major performances with the Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger at the time, it was always who's going to perform, and Mr. Mendoza's dance team would be the ones to perform at all of these events. So I'm glad to see that he continues the program, and I just want to thank you for providing that space for these students. Thank you so much.
Real quick, I just want to acknowledge the team for being here, for being present, the community for coming out, supporting our kids involved. Mr. Mendoza, I mean, the work that he's done with the kids has just been phenomenal. I mean, the hard work speaks for itself, right? And we see it day in and day out. I remember I had the privilege to be a student with Mr. Mendoza for about 2 years, when I was in 7th grade and when I was in 8th grade. He was my English and my history teacher, language arts and social studies. But I remember he used to always say social science. During my time at BGI, and always putting in work for the kids, right? One of those teachers that stayed after school, handled 2 programs at the same time. So for the kids that are currently with him, a real model for what a teacher is supposed to be. So really appreciate the many years that he's given to BGI, but to the community of Bell Gardens as well. One thing I will say is when you walk into his dance studio, the amount of trophies that are everywhere, right? Over time, the amount of achievements that students have gone, and I'll give a perfect example of someone who was in the program and now serves his community. And it's pretty viral on TikTok, I will say that. Edgar Vicencio, right? Someone who's gone above and beyond. And I think he's a director of our BG hip hop team. So goes to show the sort of effort and the commitment that these students have to the community as well, and the dedication from the parents. So want to acknowledge that, and ultimately continually have these type of programs. It's programs like this that keep our kids engaged with the community, that keep them a part of the schools and whatnot. So just want to, again, thank you all to the students that are involved. Thank you to the parents. Thank you to the community for supporting. And also thank you to the teacher, Mr. Mendoza. Gracias.
You want to share some words?
Good afternoon. My name is Maggie Rosales, and I am the BGI Dance Team President. I just want to say thank you to the Bell Gardens City Council and the Bell Gardens City Mayor Alejandra Cortez for supporting us and giving us the support. And it is very rewarding to be recognized by the city. And thank you for taking the time to go see us eighth graders perform our last concert out of this world. I appreciate you coming to see us and supporting us, our dance team. It means so much. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Carolina Murillo, and I am the BJ Dance Team Secretary. We just wanted to thank the Bell Garden City Council and Mayor Cortez for supporting our dance team and the arts. Dance has been an amazing part in my life and has helped me express myself in many ways, allowed me to find an outlet for my creativity, and has also helped me find my second family. Once again, thank you to the City Council and Mayor Cortez for supporting the arts and our dance team. Thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Andrew Rice. I was a former Bell Gardens Intermediate Stage Crew Assistant Manager. I just wanted to thank the Bell Gardens Council for the support they give us into the arts education in the city of Bell Gardens. I really appreciate seeing the Bell Gardens Council at our Arnold's event back in October. And thank you, Madam Mayor and the council members for attending the dance concerts. I know your job's difficult, however, I think you do a great job. Hope to see you again in our other events. Thank you.
Aside from bringing great dancers, you are also great speakers. Thank you for having the courage to come up and deliver those words. I know it can be very intimidating. Today, we will present one single certificate for the entire dance team, but we will be sending individual certificates to be presented at a later time so that every single one of you can take one home. And if any of you are venturing off to high school, I hope to see the great achievements that you will accomplish there as well. But if you can all join us up in the front, some of you back here, so we can all take a picture. Big round of applause one last time. And just come right around up there. You guys will go right up to that. Nice. Somebody.
I think so. Sounds good.
In the tall ones in the back. If you're the one of the tallest in the group, go ahead and stand in there. There you go. What does that mean? You guys can come over here too on this side if you want. Scoot on this side. There you go. There you go.
Is there any problem that you?
Yeah, if you got heels on, girls, if you're wearing heels, you're probably. Don't be shy. Let me see if I can grab you on a wide angle. Yeah.
One, two, three.
Okay, everybody, big cheese. Congratulations, everyone.
Come on, cheese.
Mr. Mendoza, your presence is requested. Okay, one more time, big cheese. You guys are champions. Come on, big one.
Cheese.
I'd like to take a quick moment to announce if anybody needs any translation headsets to Spanish or English, please let the clerk in the front in the lobby know. And for staff, just let me know and I'll go ahead and get one for you. Thank you.
As soon as we distribute the headsets, we'll continue with the agenda.
Si no entendieron, si alguien necesita audífonos para escuchar la reunión en español, pasen afuera y les dan los audífonos, por favor. O aquí. Who's handing them out? It is, okay, sí, aquí en el vestíbulo. Allá afuera.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and continue with our agenda. Item number 1 is a public hearing. We will now begin with item number 1 on the agenda. At this time, I will go ahead and open the public hearing at 6:33 p.m. If you have any public hearing cards, you can submit it to the chief or to the lieutenant in the back, Captain Macho in the back. City Manager, can you please introduce this item?
Thanks again, Mayor Cortez. This item is a consideration of ordinance number 934, regulating commercial retail cannabis activity citywide. Staff's recommendation is threefold. It's to find the proposed ordinance is exempt from CEQA, adopt a resolution that recommends the city council approval for procedures and requirements for proposed development agreement, and also to waive full reading and introduce ordinance number 934 by title only. Thank you, Mayor. With that, I'll actually turn it over to our Community Development Director, Gus Romo, who put a presentation up here for information. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a presentation. I'll go ahead and introduce the background, and then I'll turn it over to our city attorney, who will go ahead and go over the ordinance. This is, as our city manager stated, ordinance number 934 and zoning code amendment 2023-040. The recommendation, as our city manager stated, is threefold: to find the proposed ordinance exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, to adopt a resolution approving procedures and requirements for a proposed development agreement in connection with a conditional use permit for cannabis retail uses in Bell Gardens, and also to introduce the ordinance number 934 by title only and waive full reading. Next slide. So on May 8th, the city council directed staff to draft an ordinance that would regulate commercial cannabis retail sales, accompanied by a development agreement for cannabis retail sales. And then on May 30th, the Planning Commission held a duly noticed public hearing seeking a recommendation for the city council to act on the proposed ordinance. The commission recommended denial of the ordinance by a 4-1 vote, citing the need for greater community involvement. The commission wanted the community to comment more on the zoning map for potential commercial cannabis activity that was presented by staff, get more public input, and as the legislative making body, the city council retains a right to adopt or deny or modify the planning commission's recommendation. Next slide. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to our city attorney, Paloma, who has been working on this ordinance.
Good afternoon, Council. Paloma McAvoy, on behalf of City Attorney's Office this evening to present the proposed ordinance 934 to you. So just to give you all a quick refresher from the last time we met, as it relates to cannabis, municipalities enjoy quite a bit of discretion as it relates to land use and zoning matters to address the land use impacts associated with cannabis uses, as well as the business permitting requirements to regulate the business's operations. Important distinction to note here. The city's police powers as it relates to land use and zoning, those run with the land. That means that when it runs with the land, it doesn't matter who is on the land or using the land. Those permissions that are provided by the city attach to the land themselves and not a particular actor. And that is distinguishable from business permitting requirements, which attach particularly to the business or that particular actor. So a business permit, attaches to that business or that applicant who's seeking a business permit. The major limitations or the biggest limitation that applies to any municipality is to ensure that the city laws and regulations do not conflict with state law. A conflict arises anytime a law is duplicative, contradicts, or regulates an area that's already occupied by state law. And as it relates to potential revenue and taxation, regulation of cannabis is a way that a lot of municipalities have looked to raise revenues in their jurisdictions. Research has shown that one Southeast Los Angeles city is predicted to take in anywhere between $250,000 to $400,000 per location and has exceeded those predictions in the past. Another potential revenue generator is the development agreement process. And development agreements are essentially a contract between a developer and the city by which the developer seeks certain assurances from the city as it relates to land use regulations. In exchange, the city government will negotiate for community benefits. It's important to note that each development agreement is negotiated on a case-by-case basis. However, before you today, pursuant to your council's direction, you also have a resolution in front of you that outlines the basic procedures and terms that would be included with every development agreement that is proposed for cannabis retail use. Also important to note that development agreements are approved by ordinance, therefore subject to at least 2 public hearings throughout the process. In addition, I'll talk about the CUP process when we actually talk about the ordinance. As of right now, 88 cities. There are 88 cities within the county of Los Angeles. 23 of them permit some form of commercial cannabis retail activity. However, I do want to note a large part of the red area that you see above in the presentation before you today is the unincorporated part of the city, the county. And the county is currently implementing framework that would permit cannabis commercial activities within unincorporated parts of the county. One last funding resource that we want to make available to you that we discussed at our last meeting is that DCC has an approximate $20 million grants available to implement such systems. The city did submit an application back in May. The city will be notified whether or not it was awarded in its phase 1 funding next week. We anticipate that announcements will be made June 20th. If the city is selected as an awardee, the council will need to formally accept the grant funding. But this funding is specifically for the implementation of a cannabis ordinance. Okay, now we're going to talk about the actual specifics of the ordinance before you today. But before we actually talk about the specifics in the ordinance, I do want to talk a little bit about the public input and the public comment process that's taken place to date. As you all know, May 8th, your council considered a staff report regarding the regulation of commercial cannabis activities, and we received direction from your council to draft an ordinance as well as procedures for development agreements. On May 30th, there was a duly noticed public hearing before the Planning Commission that considered this proposed ordinance. Today, we're at June 12th, the second duly noticed public hearing for the proposed ordinance, and June 26th will be the second reading of the ordinance. It's important to note, and I'll get into the basics of the specifics of the ordinance shortly. However, every cannabis retail use is subject to a discretionary action by the city council or a conditional use permit. Those are discretionary actions by the city that will be approved by the Planning Commission. Therefore, there'll be an opportunity for the public to participate in the approval process for every individual project that's proposed within the city limits. Secondarily, individual projects that seek a development agreement will also be subject to a public hearing process before the Planning Commission and the City Council, because development agreements are approved by ordinance. So you'll have the 2 duly noticed public hearings for any proposed development agreement before the city. So there's a robust public input and community input process that has not only gone into drafting this ordinance, but will continue if the council so adopts the ordinance. These opportunities will continue on a case-by-case basis. So specifically, the ordinance before you today, as it relates to land use controls, hits upon 3 major points, or 4 major points. First, it conditionally permits a retail use and industrial and commercially zoned properties only. But there are additional siting requirements. Specifically, it prohibits the use within the Civic Center overlay district, prohibits the use within 600 feet of schools, youth centers, daycares, and parks. And this is actually a little bit more stringent than the state default, which does not include parks, but this particular ordinance also includes parks as a sensitive use. It also prohibits the use, it prohibits a cannabis retail use within 200 feet of another cannabis retail use, as well as prohibits the use in the Civic Center overlay district, irrespective of the underlying zoning. So even if it's industrial or commercial zoning, anywhere within the Civic Center overlay district, that use will not be allowed there. As it relates to design and development standards, the cannabis retail use would be subject to any design and development standards that pertain specifically to commercial industrial uses within the respective zones. And there are design requirements to allow for window transparency, as well as design requirements for security grills and gates. Lastly, all cannabis retail uses must comply with commercial parking requirements for commercial businesses, as well as the city's sign ordinance. So as it relates to the conditional use permits and the public input process, as I mentioned, these are reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission. It's also important for the council to note that anytime a conditional use permit is approved, the city also has the discretion to add additional conditions of approval that are related to protecting the public welfare and safety. Most importantly, all conditional use permits are subject to the following findings. The use shall not be in substantial conflict with the general plan for the area and comply with the standards of the zoning code unless appropriate findings are made for a variance. This is probably the one of most importance to the council, which is that the use shall not jeopardize, adversely affect, endanger, or otherwise constitute a nuisance for the public health, safety, or general welfare. The third finding is that the site is for the proposed conditional use is adequate in size, shape, topography, and can accommodate the yards, walls, fences, parking and loading facilities, landscaping, and other development features prescribed in the zoning code. And that the use is adequately served by the required utilities, including electricity and water supply. As I mentioned, as I've discussed in my several presentations, this is the second finding that allows the council to, or the planning commission, and ultimately the council, if planning commission decision is appealed to your council, to determine whether or not a cannabis retail use is proper for the area, for the place in which it is proposed. This zoning map before you right here is an illustrative map that shows the areas in which a cannabis retail use or an applicant may apply for a cannabis retail use. And this takes into consideration the existing schools, daycares, youth centers, and parks within the city limits. Keeping in mind that all of the green area that you see today will start to shrink down as retail uses are permitted because of the way the ordinance is structured. Anytime there's a cannabis retail use that's approved at a particular site, 250 feet, that radius within 250 feet of that particular site will not allow another cannabis retail use. And the intention of that siting requirement is to discourage a proliferation of cannabis retail uses in any particular area. Just given that there is a somewhat limited area within the city limits that conceivably accommodate this use, this would reduce that use as those uses are approved by the city. Moving on to the business permit regulations, and these are the regulations that apply specifically to the cannabis retail use itself. There are a number of operating standards that cannabis retail uses need to be able to comply with, including the acquisition of a business regulatory permit, provision of adequate security and lighting and licensed security guards, strict compliance, not only with local laws, but with all of state laws and state regulations, the installation of odor absorbing ventilation and exhaust equipment, the prohibition of consumption of cannabis and cannabis products on site, adequate signage. There's lots of specifications within the ordinance that require signage that inform patrons that nobody under the age of 21 is allowed, and other signs that are required by your municipal code. Compliance with all of the conditions of approval with the associated CUP. This one is very important. I'll tell you why in just a second. and the prohibition of all other commercial cannabis activities. So no cultivation, no laboratory testing, no manufacturing. Cannabis retail is strictly the only use that's permitted, that would be permitted under this ordinance within the city limits. Last two operating requirements would allow city enforcement officers to access the property for the purpose of determining compliance with the operating standards that I've just mentioned. And it also requires the business to commence operations within 1 year of the issuance of the business regulatory permit. If a business fails to comply with these operating standards that are displayed on your screen right now, their business license is subject to disciplinary action, including revocation. So this is how we try to encapsulate the basic minimum requirements that we would seek that the ordinance would seek from any cannabis retail use. And it also includes any conditions of approval that would also be added to the CUP. So if there's a particular condition of approval that's of importance to the city to ensure compliance and that the retail use does not present any issues with the general safety or welfare, they would by reference be encapsulated within the business regulatory permit. Moving on to the resolution that is before you today, this resolution provides procedures and minimum terms for any development agreement that would be negotiated in connection with a CUP for a cannabis retail operation. As I mentioned earlier, development agreements are negotiated on a case-by-case basis. And the resolution before you today implements a 10-year maximum term for development agreements, and that a minimum of the negotiated public benefits must be dedicated to youth, recreational, and educational programming, while the remainder would be dedicated towards enforcement of the city's cannabis enforcement. Provisions within the development agreement would also require full cost recovery of the execution and negotiation of the development agreement, and would be reviewed on a yearly basis. Any default as defined under the development agreement, for example, if the developer did not perform as required under the public benefits, may result in a modification or termination of the agreement. In addition, there's an indemnification clause that also also provides for attorney's fees and costs in the event of a dispute. As I mentioned earlier, these things are approved by ordinance. So after they're negotiated, they would be presented to your planning commission, then eventually to your city council. So that essentially concludes legal's presentation today. I just want to make clear that there are, as both city manager and community development director have mentioned, there are 3 separate actions that staff is recommending today, including the determination that this ordinance is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, the adoption of the resolution for the procedures and terms for a development agreement in connection with the CUP for cannabis retail use, and to waive the full reading and introduce ordinance number 934. That concludes our presentation. We're available to answer any questions.
Questions from council?
I do have a question. I noticed that it was limited to education, the benefits, the 80% of the revenue that will be allocated to. I remember voicing my request to include things such as housing. I know, for example, we're going to be looking in the near future at a potential housing board, right? And I know that that's going to be, they're going to do a cost analysis of how much that's going to be, and it's expected to be up there near the $1 million. So is there a way that we can expand the designation of those funds to include also housing, for example, initiatives or housing topics, so that we're not limited in that revenue as far as it just being entirely just for education. That's just something that I would be interested in doing, and I want to know if there's a pathway there.
So Councilmember Barson, I think maybe if I could look either to our city attorney or to our community development director to read the specifics. I think we have some pretty broad language in there that we could probably expand more, but I just want to see if maybe somebody can read that.
I can read them. Yes. Thank you, Councilman Barcena. So the development agreement currently reads, and I'll just read it word for word. In exchange for assurances to the developer, the city shall receive public benefits. Public benefits may include capital improvements, facilities, and financial contributions dedicated to youth and educational programming and enforcement of the ordinance's provisions. No less than 80% of the monetary value of the public benefit shall be dedicated to youth and educational programming. Public benefits for youth and educational programming shall be dedicated to the city's Recreation and Community Services Department and shall be utilized, but not limited to, youth programs, after-school programs, sports programming, personal enrichment classes, or capital improvements on city-owned property. So to answer your question, yes, the city can devise additional areas in which it would like to gear public benefits. And that would require a motion by your council that duly seconded and adopted to amend Resolution 2023-43, Section H, subsection 3, to also include public benefits to the city's housing programming and long range planning, if I'm understanding your request correctly.
That's correct. Yeah, the purpose of that will be to allow flexibility in case that some of those funds might be needed for future housing issues. So for example, the rent board that we're going to be discussing very soon, that's been going down the pipeline for a while. But thank you for that. That I would be interested in making a motion for that. And also just for the record, but because you read the text there, I know that it will be going to the Recreation and Community Services, which already implies that if we want to focus on using any of those funds for, say, mental health help or aid, then that would fall under the community services aspect of the department.
Yeah, I think still within Recreation Community Services, go through the Community Family Services Center, Councilmember Ward.
Okay, thank you for that. That's all.
So Councilmember Barcena, at the end, we'll have a space for motions, and at that point, you can repeat your motion.
Thank you.
And if I could add one more thing, Councilman Barcena, right now, the way that this term is written, it dedicates no less than 80% for youth and educational programming. So you may want to think about rejiggering those percentages, or perhaps if the desire is to limit how much of the public benefits go towards enforcement, perhaps doing the reverse and then allowing the rest of the benefits to go towards youth programming and then housing programming as well.
Yes, as it stands now, with my current understanding of it, I would probably be more interested in just adding it as a overall to give it maximum flexibility, if that's what
Understood.
we needed. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Briefly, I just touching on Councilmember Barcenas' point about the rent board, right? And being able to use some of those funds for that. I know in the language it says recreation, community services, community health programs. But how can we make it more clear to be able to use? Because I'm assuming the rent board will fall under community development and not under recreation and community services. So will there be language that will allow us to be able to use that for the rent board that falls under a different department?
My recommendation is that your amendment or your proposed motion to amend the resolution should directly call out the community development department.
Thank you.
Just for clarification, we don't have a rent board, right?
No.
Okay.
Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and open public comments for this item. City Clerk, can you please announce the instructions for public participation?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on public hearing item number 1. Please state your name for the record before addressing your comments to the mayor and council members. Each speaker and written comments are limited to 3 minutes. Callers wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone, and when instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining us through Zoom may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature and select unmute or the microphone icon when instructed. We will begin to hear from the members of the public that are physically present in the council chamber. If you haven't done so, please submit your public comment cards now for public hearing item number 1.
Thank you. The first speaker, Nabor Rios.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, my name is Nabor Rios. I am a member of this community, and I am here to speak on behalf of many of the families that have children that have drug abuse. And I just want to recollect that some of you run in your logo the following. Bell Garden is my home, and I am dedicated to work to ensure that our families are safe. How can our families be safe when we are going to be selling marijuana in our streets? You also say our children thrive. How are they going to thrive? The schools are packed with vapes, and it's safe. Our business will flourish. One of you is the parent liaison and community for the Montebello Unified District, which you say that your primary job is to keep children safe. We are part of that. I'm here to tell you to please reconsider what you're doing. The presentation that we just had, he said nothing about health issues. He said nothing about problems with drugs. He says nothing about the problems that we have with crimes due to marijuana use. So I'm here to ask you to please reconsider this. I know children that are smoking marijuana in our schools, in your own district. And how can you come to our community that is here present and tell us that you want to open cannabis stores in our community when you're saying that your primary job is to keep our home safe? And if this is your home, I ask you to please reconsider this. Now, we're not only going to have a problem, please stop me when it's 3 minutes. Now we're going to have more security. Our police officers are already worked up all the way. Now, a child is going to have a fight with the mother of the father. You're already going to call our police officers to go for an argument? Thank you.
Before we take another speaker, I would like to remind the public that you're not supposed to disrupt the proceedings of these meetings. If we continue to clap and cheer, we're going to have to vacate council chambers as we take the public comment. So we do ask you to be respectful of every speaker so that each one can have their turn allotted so that they can speak. So no clapping, cheering, or disturbing the meeting. Thank you. Our next speaker is Sofia Leon.
Buenas tardes.
Good evening. I can't hear it. I can't hear it. I can't hear it. No. The health problems that this is going to bring to our community if we have more drugs on the streets. I think that you need to reconsider and to look very carefully to see if this is a benefit for our community or for our youth, or if this is something that's going to bring more problems. That's all. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Leonardo Romero, and I just wanted to make sure that you guys reconsider about marijuana. I have my little brother here. He's joining middle school next year, and for them to we are already faced many problems with marijuana because of our parents. My sister's going to high school, and I just graduated from high school this Thursday, and there's so many kids with actual weed, blunts, vapes, and I really don't want my siblings to see it again. Once they already have trauma from drugs already, from my own mom. I don't need my brother to see it again or be, hey, do you want to take a hit? I really don't need that. You know, our addiction in our family is very, very easy. And my sister we're learning how to cope with our trauma, and for her to cope with drugs, it's gonna be really, really bad. And just please ask if you guys are able to think about children with abuse and trauma from their past. That would be very grateful. Thank you.
Again, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and start issuing individual warnings. Por favor, les pedimos, por favor, no aplaudir, no hacer gritos para poder escuchar a las personas. En este punto vamos a empezar a dar warnings individuales. Jennifer Rodriguez.
Comunidad de Bell Gardens.
I got it. Okay, just because I don't hear it. City of Bell Gardens. I know that you're planning. It's at the last meeting. The people who are working, I'm hearing myself. And now they say that 2 or 3 years ago, no, I can't hear her. I can't hear her. I'm sorry. Okay. Her opinion was this. I'm hearing myself echoing, hearing myself. Notes. That I demand that there be an investigation into Maria Pulido and the decision she's making. I have pictures in Facebook with her
with her boyfriend, or I don't know what, saying, congratulations on the buying your house. You live in your house. What, you stay here, spend the night here? But no, I know I'm your neighbor, and at 4 a.m. I go by your house. So I ask the attorney, please, that people who vote in our community live in our community. Regarding drugs, don't try to convince our community with a house and a popsicle. How much, what value does the health and welfare of a family, the life of a child? We are not going to sell ourselves like you all have sold out.
Be possible for us, the public, to get an answer. Very short question. Why do you want these facilities in our city? Why? You already mentioned that you're gonna spend some money with the kids and blah here and blah there. But why do you want this as a council of our city, these facilities to be open in our city? Why? We want to hear on the straight answer from all of you to all of us who represent the whole city of Bell Gardens. Why? And 600 feet away from school? What is this? And you just mentioned that you're going to spend some money on helping kids, blah here, blah there. Yes. So when those kids find out from where the money is coming from, with the help that the city is giving to them on recreation or whatever, well, they're going to be, oh, this must be something good. Let's get this cannabis, marijuana also. The city is spending the money on us. The kids might going to say that, and definitely they will. And the question again is, ¿por qué quieren permitir estas facilidades, tiendas en nuestra ciudad? Why? Give us a straight answer. What benefit it is for all of you that is not for us, because it's not a benefit for we the citizens, but for sure, there is a big benefit for all of you, these faces whom we are looking right now. That is all of you. Why do you want to have these facilities open in our cities?
Juan Cervantes.
Muy buenas tardes a todos.
I'm here to express that I am not in agreement with this because I'm a school teacher. This is not acceptable. These kids are going to be ruined, and what are you going to do? Nothing. So I am not in agreement with this. Thank you.
My name is George Montoya.
Mi nombre es George
Actually,
Montoya.
I lived in Bell Garden for almost 11 years. I was forced to move for different reasons that the city was actually making and changes. And I definitely not agree for concerning this specific opening of cannabis stores, because it will be make more worse problems for many, many people. I'm a next neighbor for you guys. And I definitely, my city is actually performing better, actually, ideas that you guys are doing in here. And believe me, I'm actually concerning because it's my next actually city and definitely it will be bringing a lot of problems. Okay, you guys have been focused actually a lot of problems also in rent for Primo actually increasing many actually years. That forcing me to actually to come out from Cabell Gardens. There's no control of rents in here, including that actually never seen improvement actually. And for 11 years living in here, the opening of the pool of the Bell Gardens. And it's still always something that was actually something strange that happened and never was actually available in 11 years. That's a shame. And then maybe you guys was not even in here, but you guys are young, really young. Probably don't have the background to maybe a Mr. Michael. The lawyer actually exposed all the good things about actually all the revenue. But you don't know that we grow up, we make money, and then later on, we have to pay all that money for all the sickness that we're making on, for the mistake that we're making, and the decisions that you guys put it on. And now it's just a shame that actually find out that someone that is not actually a member living in Bell Gardens really, is taking decisions for Bell Gardens. I hope that he taking good decisions and make it up better as a Downey is. But at the same time, that we want to expose also the risk of in respect between families. When this gentleman is actually using the marijuana or the cannabis, and then what? We're gonna have people driving with that influence, because don't tell me that we don't do it. Definitely they do, and we actually alcohol. And that's will increase more specific problems for the police, which is they will say, okay, we have to take care in the city or take care in actually the banks, or we're gonna go into a person, actually a specific family to arrest that person because it's just all using marijuana. That is actually big things to go into consideration. So I will please that you guys think about it, overnight and make sure that those stores, they're gone. Thank you.
Bruce A. Crow.
Good evening. Wow, we got some Maxine Waters tricks going on here, huh? Okay, pretty interesting. There is nothing to reconsider here. Your planning commission voted 1-4 or 4-1 against it because there was not enough public input. Now, obviously, there is no demand to bring in a facility, no matter how much you promise to regulate it, how much money that it's going to bring in, which it's not going to bring in any money because the dispensaries can't make any money. They can't exist with a certain situation that is set up by the state. Everything they put in their facilities is marked up at least 50%. So that is passed on to the customers. Maybe that's why they keep buying this stuff. They can't quite think clearly enough. But why would anybody want to run a facility, a dispensary? Well, I'll tell you why. Because they're not only selling it legally, they're illegally growing it too. Because the retailer can't make any money. So the person that is producing it illegally runs it through the legal dispensary as well. That's what is going on. And one person or maybe two or somebody up here, it may not be all of you, but some people want this in here, and I can tell you there is no demand for it. Obviously, I mean, the first 11, 12 speakers, there is nothing for you to reconsider. Your vote is no. It's absolutely a no. So don't try to condescend and look down your nose at people and tell them, oh, we're gonna sell pot for the kids. That's absurd. Or we're going to sell pot for housing. That is ridiculous. Do you think these people are that stupid? They're not. It's a joke. It should be a joke. Your vote is a no, period. I don't know who decided to put this through, but you're trying to sneak it through, but they're on to you. So you better think twice about it. You better think twice about it because they're mad. And people are mad at their government officials. They're really upset. Mad denotes insanity. I'll say they're upset. So if you think you're going to pass this, you got a big problem on your hands. Thank you.
Marta Carrasco.
Buenas tardes.
Good evening. My name is Marta Carrasco. I live here in the city of Bell Gardens for over 50 years. You all know me. I came last time as well. I'm here now. We're a group of independent parents for better quality of life in our city. And we are absolutely against having those stores brought to our community. Miss Francis, you as a teacher, I don't think you can sign on to this request because a teacher is always teaching kids to say no to drugs, no to marijuana. I've been in school a lot of times with officers, the Red Ribbon campaign, and it's all about teaching kids to say no to drugs. And you as a teacher, it really seems strange to me that you would sign on to bringing those dirty stores here. And another thing, you all are young. When you make more money, you're in a better position, you're going to go to another city, a better city, because you'll want to give a better life to your children. But what are you going to leave us with? Trash from those stores, those shops. Older people like me, we can't move to other cities. So please consider our city. I've been here so many years and we never needed any drug business to make the city as nice as it is now. More work for the police, more deaths, more filth. That's what you want to leave us with? You're young. When you get some good money, you're going to leave and you're going to leave us with this garbage. Please consider this. And also more work for the police department. They'll have a lot of work here. Please consider that. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Rafael Rodriguez. I live at 5657 Clara Street. I don't know what to say. And I apologize for what I'm going to say. Don't be so stupid. Or I don't know if you're stupid or what. I really don't know why. You're a teacher. What do you want for your students? You want the best, right? You want to see a bunch of potheads in your class? Miss Pulido, you don't live here. You can't vote. Go vote in Downey. That's where you belong. If you vote and they take your vote into account, you're defrauding the city. She's deceiving you. You're saying that we're going to get this and that. Several people have already told you here, you're going to get 20 get 20 and pay 100, because all these kids, you're bringing all these drugs to the community. I don't know if you're intelligent or stupid, because we live in a community that we're all comfortable in our community. I've been here over 4 years here in Bull Gardens, and you're going to tell me what's good is bad? All these people here voted for you. They voted for you all. They put you in this position. Why? So that you just shit on the community? That's the truth. Another thing. Water, water, water. You are a traitor, Marcos and Alejandra Cortez as well. How many people walked the streets for your campaigns to get you elected? And what have you done now? Betrayed us. You promised your community that you were not going to bring drugs into the community. You all promised that. You didn't promise it? Tell me if that's a lie. Ms. Alejandra, is that a lie? I don't know if you're deaf or blind. It's the truth. You don't listen, you don't hear. We went out walking the streets for you all. And you recommended us to say no to drugs in the community, but here you're bringing it in. Oh, and everybody knows Mario Beltran. He's clearly manipulating you like puppets. And the Planning Commission. I came to the Planning Commission, but nothing was resolved. And now you're going to have another Planning Commission meeting. That's what they wanted, but thank you. Good evening. My name is Ascension Lopez once again. I was here at the last meeting. Just want to remind you, the concern of this whole community what everyone wants is to have their families be safe. And we elected you to represent us. And we trust you to make decisions that are going to bring progress to the community, especially to families. And using an analogy from the point of view of a family, within our families, there are subjects that are not up for debate between parents and children. There are requests that there's not even any debate about yes or no. The parent knows that a certain thing is not good for the child and does the right thing. And so I want to remind you that you all, as representatives, have the obligation to make the right decisions. And people have expressed themselves, we have expressed themselves that we are not in agreement with this proposal to establish marijuana consumption centers. There are other things that we could discuss or argue about, but this basically is a situation between economic benefit and morals. And we want to be a family here in the community. So I ask that you consider this very, very seriously. The economic part, that this may produce certain revenues for the city to be able to build new homes. Where are you going to build them? Right around the marijuana businesses? Okay, I have 40 seconds. All right. The only way that I could agree is if they did them miles and miles underground toward the center of the earth. They're totally against this project. I think that you should get rid of it. Thank you.
Mario.
Good evening, City Council. I'm just a little disappointed at the fact that we had to go through this. You know, the fact is, the last meeting, you guys were talking about how great it was to grow up in Bell Gardens. And it's ironic that today we honored a great group of kids. And guess what? They didn't have to walk to school by dispensaries. They didn't have to increase crime wasn't happening because of marijuana dispensaries. But today we honored them. It's kind of like a little hypocritical where we're talking about the kids, then we're using them as a, you know, like the dangling carrot. If we bring marijuana dispensaries in, the kids will get more. Like, isn't that ironic? Don't you remember growing up with the DARE program? Right? The DARE program, keeping kids off drugs. And now we got people that work in our Montebello Unified School District voting to bring in drugs to our wonderful city. Ironic. Sad. You ran on a campaign to make the city safer of crime, increase patrol. You know, you said to generate revenue, Ms. Sanchez. Not all money is good money. $250,000 to $450,000. How much does it take to pay one officer? None of these stats talked about increasing crime. Can we ask those questions? What is the crime impact on Bell Gardens bringing in, whether it's, you know, selling it, growing it, housing it, right? Let's talk about that. All of you have commissioners. They voted it down, except for Mrs. Sanchez, commissioner. Okay, she didn't vote it down. We're making amendments to have this money go into housing when we don't even have a housing department. How can we allocate funds? I'll ask the lawyer for this. How can we allocate funds to a department we don't even, doesn't even exist? You ran these people, you bamboozled them, the community. Chavez, I admire you. You stood up for your morals the other day. Allow the people to vote for this. And wow, tip my cap to you, young man. You're going to go far in places. But we have the power of a recalling. Gente, oigan, we could recall this. So as you have a vote, we have a vote. And it's time for us to not get bamboozled. You know, you made Jennifer look out really bad, but tonight she looked really great. And you know what? It's sad that if you continue to vote yes for this, making amendments when we don't even have commissions and basically deciding.
Mariela Rodríguez.
Sí, buenas tardes.
Good evening. My name is Mariela. I just want to remind you that you as mothers, I have a child who goes to school and I have to work to support them. She has to go to school by herself. And she always says, Mom, there are a lot of homeless people here. I don't want to walk. Mom, the other day, a gangbanger followed me in his car and there were a lot of kids. Mothers, do you want that for your children? Just please think about that. Thank you.
Felipe Díaz.
Good evening, council member, chief. I'm an ex-law enforcement for Orange County Sheriff Department. I'm retired. Okay, I was a gang narcotics unit before. I've been shot. I don't have my splint. I can show you, pick up my shirt right now. Okay, now I work private security for different events, HBO, Grammys, anything that comes. I worked dispensaries for 2 weeks and I got out of it because what you get in there is not nice, especially in the valley. So I'm telling you from experience, doesn't work. Now, another issue is you have a small department. How do the officers are going to respond to a call? You first got to cover your department. Help these officers. You can't send the 4 units you only have in the city. You think I don't know? And respond. You call for I live in the city. You make a call to the department. Oh, we're busy. We're busy. The 4 units are busy. So what happens when you have a dispensary? They'll never get to you, to the residents. So you got to look at all that and respect our residents. Like I said, this is a beautiful, small city. It could be a beautiful city if we take care of it, but it looks like they don't care. I mean, we got to work together. And I'm just being honest from the heart. It works from law enforcement to everything. Dispensaries get homeless, drug users, and it doesn't work. So what are you going to do when all those homeless come here from LA, from the valley, for the dispensary? Because they do switch dispensaries because they get banned from different dispensaries. So what is our department going to do? Bell Gardens PD, wait for the county to come and assist them for everything else when they have shootings and other incidents? No, we got to put it together. First comes them and their safety, because officers are the ones that respond to these situations. And you got to have enough coverage of manpower for dispensaries. And I can see all the points you have there for all the dispensaries you're thinking, and you think you're going to run it with these 4 officers? Wrong. Take it from the heart and from my experience. Thank you, Council Member and Chief.
Carmen Jaramillo.
Muy buenas tardes.
Good evening. I'm here again. I was here at this last meeting as well. From at the time I left, you were still talking about all of the profits you would make, all of the revenue for the city. But even though I have a lot of need, for years, I have not been able to finish a house that I need to finish. But even so, I don't need your money, not money that has come from you bringing these stores here. You should look for another way to get money. Because I remember when you were on the streets, you were sending your people, your relatives, wanting us to vote for you so you could be in those positions. You were offering us a lot of good things. Like, oh, we're going to do this for the community. We're going to do everything right. And now you come out with, you're going to bring marijuana stores here to destroy families, to destroy kids. I have kids in addiction. You all should, I hate to talk about what we go through, but you all should know what you go through if you have an addict. It is horrible to be living through this situation. And they're in such bad shape, they cannot escape their addictions. Pay attention, listen to us and pay attention to what you're doing. This isn't good for the community. We supported you and we voted for you, but we also need you to do better things. We need you to help the city grow in other ways, not by bringing drugs. So more people will become addicts. Please, please, we're all here. And if you all still do this, we are not going to stop paying attention to this. Just like you all asked us to support you, we will support each other in an effort to get rid of you. If you're not going to support us, we are going to see what we have to do to kick you out because you're no good for anything.
Elia Flores.
Hello, good evening. My name is Oralia Flores. I am asking you to please consider, we have the power to prohibit strictly in our city the retail activity of cannabis by not allowing it in Bell Gardens. Other cities have prohibited most activity. We can also do that as well and take measures to do that. I also ask you to promote rather the youth, children, and families to raise funds for youth opportunities within the city, helping them to learn new skills and to work to earn funds in a positive way, not dependent on drug consumption and dependency. Also, please consider the negative effects of this drug, cannabis. Even if people may be requesting it, seeking it, why support a greater risk to our city and society? If someone you love and care about would ask you to provide them with what is detrimental, would you give it to them? And I noticed that you request God for assistance. So please consider this. Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. Please consider what is moralistically right, not be driven by means of profit and wealth, or be pressured by society, the world. Also consider Gospel Matthew chapter 16, verse 26. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their own soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world but lose your own soul? Is anything worth more than your soul? So please consider that we're not setting a good example for the youth and children, and think of that in itself. And I hope that God can really touch your heart and have a change of heart. I'm praying for all of us, and I really hope that you reconsider and not be offended by how we are painfully hurt by what you are considering, but actually consider all of our families, the children, all of us, and be more compassionate toward us. Thank you.
Rosario Luna.
Buenas noches.
Good evening, council members, Jorge, Alejandra, Marcos, and Maria Pulido. With all due respect, I'm here to ask you, please, you know me, and I have been with you all. And I think that when Ms. Francis, when you work with children, I think all of you, but specifically, Ms. Francis, you know what shouldn't be done. Bell Gardens is my home. I've lived here since 1987. I have dedicated myself to taking care of children, rescuing children from abuse, and it costs me a lot to keep these children in my home. The government does not support me. I am a legal guardian of a girl, and when she came to me, you have no idea what shape she was in. This boy came to me as a baby, and you don't know what it's like to hold in your arms a baby who is born addicted to drugs. Do you know what it's like to hold a newborn baby in your arms who has been poisoned with drugs? You have no idea. I've seen these. I have walked. I have patrolled. I have worked as a volunteer on the streets. places are selling drugs. We already have enough. We don't have enough police officers. We want more police officers. We need more protection. And we have walked the streets asking for more officers, but we don't want more marijuana, with all due respect. And I ask you, I beg you, my vote, I voted for you all, just like a lot of people. But I'm not going to accept this. Because if I were in that position, I could not do this. I have something else that's more important, and it's them. Now, the message is being put out in schools, say no to drugs. And so how can we be bringing this to schools? My home has children. I want safety for my children, security. And I ask you, I beg you, make it so that my child can walk the street safely. Addicts can harm people. Thank you.
Good evening, Bell Gardens City Council. My name is Robert Rodriguez. I'm a 15-year resident here at Bell Gardens. I brought my son with me today because this is a civic lesson for him. And the way our climate is politically, I want him to understand that we, the people, elect our representatives. And me, for him, I represent him. In the school that he goes to and how drugs have been introduced into their environment. The DARE program was brought up, that was established in 1983 to educate our kids and to teach them to stay away from drugs. Somehow along the way in this path, we've made it okay to say this drug is now all right to use and we can make business out of it and profit. And I mean, you can go on and on about the whole thing. I had the ability to speak to either people that were representing you or some of you came to my house and we had discussions regarding the building of Bell Gardens and how we can improve it and make it a better place. These are usually spirited conversations because I know that in the political world, we're going to say what we have to say to achieve our goal. And your goal is to be here to represent the people. And it is my hope, like I tell everybody, that when you guys do go out and speak to the residents and you are selling to them your abilities to negotiate what's in the best interest of the city, that you guys actually believe that in your hearts. Because it's getting harder and harder to educate our kids and just teach them right from wrong when it is that we're now telling them for so many years that these drugs are bad. And now we're telling them, oh, this one's okay. And we can introduce it into our communities to try to generate revenues. There's a reason why they say that there's a devil in the details, because he does exist. And if we invite this into our community, we not only are putting our kids in peril, our police department in peril, because now they have to deal with the consequences of what we're inviting into our city. Your age has come into question here, right? Your experience has come into question. And it is my belief that when you guys went out to those communities, it came from a place of where you guys had a genuine belief that I can make a difference in this society. The small town of Bell Gardens does not have much room for us to have dispensaries in the city. So it's going to be hard to make these things happen and keep them a safe distance away from any of the schools, even though in the demonstration that you guys gave that there's going to be X amount of feet away from the school and all this other stuff. I don't think that we should in any way gamble the health of our neighborhood, of our neighbors, of our neighborhood, of our kids, of our schools to allow this to come into our communities. Please reconsider this option as a source of revenues and take it off the table, please. Yes, as a choice that you guys have the ability to make, represent your community. Because as you've heard, the people are not happy. Thank you.
Esteban Figueroa.
Buenas noches.
Good evening. I'm here to give you my point of view regarding this business that you want to bring here. And we can see that the calculations that you've made look very promising. The consequences that are going to arise when kids start using the marijuana, that's when we'll see the reality. It seems like no one here knows, no one here has experienced falling into drugs. I have worked with AA and NA, and I'm breaking my anonymity, but it's okay. I want you to check them out. There are like 300 groups in this area, and take the testimony from all these people who are recovering. And you'll see their dreams were cut off. They weren't able to realize any of their dreams, their illusions, because their brains are damaged. So reconsider what you're thinking about doing. Or is it that you're really getting a juicy prize from this? Are you out there for yourselves or for the community? Because this business, I'm not even seeing good numbers. To be happy, we should be happy at progress in the city, but you're just bringing deterioration. You don't need to be a prophet to see the disaster that's going to occur here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. At this point, we're going to go ahead and conclude our in-person public comment, and now we're going to move on to our online public comment.
Thank you, Mayor. If any member of the public that's participating by Zoom or phone, if you would like to make a comment, please dial *9 or select the raise hand feature on your device. I do not have anyone raising their hand at the moment, but I did want to also announce that we did receive one written communication that was provided to the full council, and it was one comment in opposition to public hearing item number 1.
Thank you, City Clerk. If there's no objection by the City Council, I will go ahead and close public participation for this item. And now, does council have any further questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, I will go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:51 p.m. And at this point, the floor is open for any motions.
I want to move to amend section 9.201.60A3 of the proposed ordinance to increase the sitting requirement between cannabis retail facilities from 250 feet to 500 feet.
And just for clarification, Mayor Pro Tem, your motion is to amend section 6 of the proposed ordinance?
That is correct.
Thank you.
So Councilmember Chavez, at this point, we're taking any motions. Mayor Pro Tem made a motion. So if there's any other motions, we'll take all the motions, then I'll take the seconds and we'll take them all to a vote. But I'll take all the motions first, make sure that our attorney has the right language, and then we'll move on to.
I have 2 other motions at this time. The next motion I'd like to make is to amend section 6 to prohibit cannabis retail use between Florence and Eastern, 1 block radius away. That includes Lubec, Live Oak, and Ajax.
Sorry, Mayor Pro Tem, can you repeat those street names one more time for?
Between Florence and Eastern, going up to Lubec, Live Oak, and Ajax. The next motion I would like to make is to amend section 6 to strike the requirement for the applicant to submit a state license. With the land use application, the requirement is redundant since it's already required for the business permit application within the city.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to amend also the 80% and expand the designation to include the community development with respect to housing issues specifically. And if the city manager has a suggestion on how I can better word that, I'm open to it.
I wrote down the exact sections if you'd like me to help you with that. Mark,
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I wrote down the exact sections if you'd like me to help you with that motion.
Council, if we could focus on number, it sounds like Councilmember Barcena, you're on number 2, is that correct?
I believe.
Okay, if we could first take motions on number 3, which is waive the full reading and introduce ordinance number 934. Mayor Pro Tem made 3 different motions for revisions to that ordinance. So if we want to go ahead and see if there are any other motions to be made on the ordinance, and then we can vote on 2 and then on 1.
Okay.
Attorney, can you please repeat the first motion or explain the first motion to council, because Councilmember Chavez wasn't here for that one.
Yes, the first motion was to amend the citing requirements between cannabis retail uses to increase the citing requirement from 250 feet to 500 feet. Did you need all 3, Councilman?
Yes, please.
The second was to prohibit a cannabis retail use between Florence and Eastern, going to Lubec, Live Oak, and Ajax. And the third motion was to amend section 6 to remove the requirement for the state license in the application procedures because those are duplicative and already required in the business permit application.
So just for clarification, as it stands, we are requesting the state license. And we
In
want
the
to
business
remove it.
permit
And
application.
we're asking to remove that.
It's in the business permit application process as well.
Okay.
No, yeah. It's duplicative as it stands right now.
Oh, okay. So it's duplicated and it's okay.
Yeah. The city will still require it for the business permit application.
Okay, does anybody have any questions on these motions before I proceed to take seconds and votes?
One other question, all these 3 motions are pertaining to which of the 3 motions that were originally presented? Only to 3, to the waive and full reading. Okay.
Yeah, so all of those 3 motions are within the language of the ordinance, and then we'll go back to the second one, which is where Marco is going to amend language. And then if there's any other additional.
And Marcos's motion amends the second one that
The
was.
second.
Okay, gotcha.
Mayor, just point of clarification. When Mayor Pro Tem identifies between Florence and Eastern, just want to point that those 2 streets intersect.
Yes, right. So I'm talking about the intersection and then 1 block radius around that, which I mentioned all the side streets. Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and take the first motion first, which was to amend from 250 feet to expand to 550 feet. May I have a second? I'll go ahead and second that motion. We'll go ahead and take it to a roll call vote. Councilmember Chavez?
To amend the citing requirements from 250 to 500.
Yes, sir.
That'll be yes.
Councilmember Barcena?
Yes.
Councilwoman Pulido?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez?
Yes.
And yes for myself as well, so that amendment carries through. Now, the second motion was to amend to have the 1 block radius and the intersection of Eastern and Florence. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second, Councilmember Barcena, we'll take a roll call vote. Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Councilmember Barcena?
Yes.
Councilwoman Pulido?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
And yes for myself as well, that motion carries to amend that. And then the last amendment was to strike out the duplicate language. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
And then I'll take this to a roll call vote. Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Councilmember Barcena?
Yes.
Councilwoman Pulido?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
And yes for myself as well, that motion carries. Now, this was just for the amendments in the ordinance. Now, there is an amendment for item number 2.
Correct. And the amendment is to expand the designation of the 80% revenue to include the Community Development Department, specifically going towards housing issues. And I want to make sure that that's the best wording that I can come up with. So I would like to request help with that.
I think the attorney had used language to devise or amend 2023-43 section subsection 3 to include public benefits, housing programming, long-range planning.
Housing programming, long-range planning?
Yes,
Okay, yes.
Thank you.
that work?
Yes, that's consistent.
Okay, may I have a second?
I second.
Second by Mayor Pro Tem. I'll take this to a roll call vote. Councilmember Chavez. Oh,
If I can just get a point of clarification, so are we gonna go back to vote on 1, 2, and 3 all over again?
that is correct.
Oh, okay, so we're right now, we're just doing edits, and then at the end, we'll just take them all together. Okay, okay, that'll be a yes for me as well, to include the housing change on the ordinance.
Councilmember Barsina,
Yes.
Councilwoman Pulido,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
and yes for myself as well. Motion carries. Now it is open to make any of the recommendations listed on the agenda with the items 1, 2, and 3.
Are you asking for additional recommendations or?
No, so we've taken all the recommendations unless there's any other ones, then we can move to the final motions.
Are we moving to motion 1, 2, and 3 together?
That is correct.
Okay, I make a motion to move forward with 1, 2, and 3.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
And let's take this to a roll call vote. Councilmember Chavez,
No,
Councilmember Barsina,
Yes.
please don't clap, thank you.
Councilwoman Pulido,
Yes.
and yes for myself as well. Motion carries. Okay, at this point, we're gonna go ahead and take a 10-minute recess. And we'll resume at 8:10. Mr. Bruce A. Crow.
Good evening. Just would like to remind everybody that Alex Rojas and Luis Rojas have their trial starting this month. Hopefully, we will get justice from the Central Basin Municipal Water District. They can be convicted of all counts, all 18 counts of their embezzlement, bribery, and other various charges. They were involved also with Luis Rojas was the CEO of what is now called Capstone. His company was called Delterra. They did some work at the school districts when Alex Rojas was the superintendent of the Bassett Unified, and they embezzled at least $1.4 million on one charge. So, and they were also involved at the Montebello schools as well. And hopefully we can get some justice, and people like this can be thrown in jail, well tried and convicted and thrown in jail. And we can get people like this off the streets and not being able to take advantage of the taxpayers. Another thing, obviously, there needs to be a lesson learned that council members and politicians, we have corruption everywhere. It's starting at the federal level, especially with the Biden crime family. We know they're accepting bribes from Ukraine. You know, at least $5 million apiece, him and his son. And the Romneys are involved in that too. So they're just laundering money through Ukraine. That's why they're spending up to $200 billion on it. And they're going all out as far as they can. We have it here trying to squash our amendment rights. They want to shut you up. But the people hopefully are awakening. They are rising up. And the politicians need to understand that you work for the resident and the voters. We don't work for you. You work for us. You got to get that straight. So you think you're going to blow smoke, you know, and come in here and say, let's buy pot for housing and stuff. Your housing doesn't work. It hasn't worked. Just like Gavin Newsom has solved the homeless problem since 2004. Okay. How's it work so far? Hasn't worked, has it? And it never will. So what you're going to do is try to create another bureaucratic organization to regulate the marijuana shops. That's the last thing you need is more government, because we've seen what we're getting now.
Jennifer Rodriguez.
Nuevamente, la decisión.
I can't hear her. I can't hear her. Can't hear her. Oh, wait. Okay. The other thing I wanted to say is this. Your community is going to wake up. Your community is not going to stay quiet. You used them and you lied to them. You said that you were against cannabis, that you weren't going to do this. You were going to protect the community. You lied to them. A lot of people who supported you, a lot of the people who supported you, believe me, they are not going to support you again because you have defrauded them. You have deceived them and you used them. As I had said before, I want to reiterate. As citizen, voter, and resident of this community, I am filing a complaint against Maria Pulido, whose residence is in Downey. There are enough photos taken to prove that this lady lives with her boyfriend or whoever it is in the city of Downey. I demand that the city attorney begin an official investigation of this woman. Your sister said it. You don't live here. Your mom said it. Your neighbor says it. You don't live here. There are pictures. Your real estate agent who sold you this house. There's lots of evidence that you don't live here. That's why you don't care how you're harming the people who live here. You don't care because your future is somewhere else. As another lady said, I think it was Marta, you all are going to move on and you're going to leave shit here. What a fraud. You're going to have to come in front. Oh, I have to come up and say, you lied, you defrauded me. But now she sees who you really are. How much money did Mario Beltran give you? How much money did you receive for your campaigns for you to approve this? Because I've been saying this for a long time, that this was going to happen. I could see that it was already ready. This is not a surprise to me that you are doing this. Alejandra, your mentor, Mario Beltran. So I'm surprised, it doesn't surprise me that you're here. And I also want to mention conflict of interest. Many of you have sisters, brothers, cousins as your commissioners. There's something called nepotism, and you should not have these people on these boards. And you're always, this is illegal, Alejandra.
Marco Armenta.
Yo le voy a decir algo. Yo tengo 40 años viviendo.
Good evening. I live here in Bell Gardens. It was full here. Full of drug dealing. The officers cleaned it up. People were deported. Now you all are bringing. My sister knows what this is like. What happens with these stores. They have them all over the place, in Watts, in Compton. But here in Bell Gardens? What? Why don't you just go to Downey if you want to mess with the city? We're not going to let this happen. The police cleaned out all those people who were selling drugs here in Bell Gardens. I've lived here for 40 years. I repeat, 40 years. Please don't send this city backwards. Rogelio Rodriguez.
Buenas noches.
You know my name. My name is Rogelio Rodriguez. I live at 5647 Clara Street. If you want to look for me, I'm going to say the same thing, Marcos. You promised no drugs in the city of Bell Gardens, and I helped you. I was your accomplice. I walked with you in your group. Same for Alejandra. After you all ran, you turned your back on Jenny, and you and Pedro and Alejandra and Maria Pulido started to work together. That's betrayal. You all have betrayed your community. You're a teacher. You're betraying your students. A teacher says that their kids are their second kids, but you here are bringing marijuana for them to smoke it night and day. I hope you don't regret this. Remember what I told you. Your family is going to go through the same thing that our families are going through. There are people here who begged you. They begged you. Why the hell should they have to beg you? You work for us. You're dumb, stupid people who don't know what to do. You've never had power in your hands before. How many of you, maybe you live here, maybe, but I'm going to investigate where each one of you lives. Because I had left politics. I said, no, I'm done with this, but you people are raising the dead. You're bringing people back. You are not going to be at peace because we're going to be knocking on your doors every day. I hope you sleep well tonight because there are a lot of people here who already told you one way or the other, you're out. The easy way or the hard way. And this is not the first time that I've had to get rid of undesirable people. It's not the first time. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. This that you're doing here, you just got everyone completely fed up. This is you're hurting all these people. That's what you have done. So let's see if you sleep well.
City Clerk, did we receive additional cards?
No, but we do have two people who virtually raised their hands.
Okay.
Those that have joined us by Zoom or phone, if you would please, with the Zoom ID, Erlinda Morales de Jimenez, if you would please select the microphone icon to unmute your call.
¿Me oyen?
Sí.
Do you hear me?
Sí,
Yes. Hello?
Puedes seguir con tu.
Do you hear me? Okay. Why? Why were all of the citizens of Bell Gardens not notified about this meeting? I am just now learning about this meeting. And unfortunately, I'm also not in agreement with marijuana sales here in the city. We are so worried about our kids, younger ones and older ones. And then to bring in these sales here, it's not okay. But not everyone was notified. Otherwise, there would be more people there with you who are not in agreement with you. Thank you.
Person with Zoom ID, Nemesio Segura, if you would please select the microphone icon, you may proceed with your comment.
Sí, se me hace algo un poquito algo muy chistoso que esta gente no sabe que la marihuana se vende en todas las ciudades en su alrededor.
This is really funny. Marijuana is sold in all cities around. Downey.
En todas las partes. Es algo un poquito que se me hace chistoso que quieren que en Bell Gardens esté seguro, pero
I think it's kind of funny that you guys want to have it here.
Viene la metanfetamina, viene de la
You already
heroína.
have methamphetamines, heroin. These are things that are sold on the street.
La marihuana que se está vendiendo aquí a nuestros
The
niños viene un
marijuana
poquito
that's being sold
mala porque no es
here to
marihuana.
our kids
Se les está dando fentanilo.
is not good. It's not marijuana. It's fentanyl. It
Y
has fentanyl.
yo creo que tenemos mejores cosas que hacer. Le digo a mi concilio
I think we have
que no
better
tengan
things to
miedo,
do.
que se acuerden
So
la
I'm
demográfica que está aquí
telling
en
the
Bell
council,
Gardens.
don't be afraid of these people here in Bell Gardens.
No, eso no es lo que dije. Yo dije que no tengan miedo de la demográfica aquí en Bell Gardens.
So don't be afraid of the demographics here in Bell Gardens.
Aquí las demográficas apoyan. Y que viva la marihuana. Hasta luego.
The demographics favor you. And long live marijuana.
Close public participation for non-agenda items. I do ask the public to please quiet down so we could continue with our agenda. Thank you. Now we're moving on to public comments for agenda items. Mr. Bruce Crow. Yeah. City Clerk, I have no additional comment cards.
That is correct. And oh, I did receive one, but this one was on the non-agenda items. And that is all we have. I do have someone who raised their hand, but I could ask them to see if it's on an item listed on the agenda.
Yes, please.
Zoom ID Edgar, if you would please select the microphone icon and announce if you wanted to provide a comment on an item listed on the agenda. Not public.
Hello,
hearing
can you
item
hear
number
me?
one, or non-public, or items that are not listed on the agenda, but only other items from 2 to 10. Thank you.
Oh, okay, so not on the agenda, no?
Items that, yeah, only items that are listed on the agenda,
Okay.
with the exception of item number 1, which was the public hearing item.
The cannabis one, right?
That's the cannabis one, correct?
Okay, yeah, I only have one comment for the cannabis
Sorry,
dispensaries.
item was already heard.
That
Oh,
item
okay, never
already
mind.
heard, that period is closed already.
Okay, never mind then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no objection by the city council, we'll go ahead and close public participation for agenda items. Moving on to city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor Cortez. Just briefly want to recognize staff, the Honor Guard, council, and others for a successful Memorial Day event at Veterans Park about 2 weeks ago. There's a lot going on at our parks here at Bell Gardens now that summertime's kicking into full swing. So I want to mention a few things that are coming up for people that may be listening and for the council's information. So registration for summer camp at Veterans Park is open right now. You can register online. If you go to our calendar page, go to June 19th and you can find the flyer there, or you can just do a search. It's June 19th, I'm sorry, through August 4th. This Wednesday at 5 p.m. at Veterans Park, Bell Gardens PD is hosting a town hall to discuss funding and acquisition of certain types of equipment that's required by AB 481. On Thursday, we have our deadline for the BG Merit Scholarship application. So every year the city provides scholarship opportunity for Bell Gardens High School seniors. If you just do a Google search of Bell Gardens Merit Scholars, you'll see the program. There's 2 days to apply and it's up to $3,000 scholarship. Also on Thursday at 6 p.m. at Veterans Park is our first summer concert night events. So that's going to go on every Thursday between now and August 3rd. So it'll be summer concert this week and then movies the next week and then concert and movies. So that will be starting up. This weekend's a busy weekend. Saturday and Sunday is it's a yard sale weekend. So from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. No permit is required for residents to have yard sales at their residence. Also on Saturday from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. it's the compost mulch giveaway for Bell Gardens residents. So I think from 8 to 9, I think there's a 30-gallon limit, and after 8 a.m. you can get more than that. You do have to show proof of residency in Bell Gardens with a bill or anything that shows an address. Also this Saturday, when the mulch giveaway is over at 11 a.m. at the AutoZone, if you bring 2 used oil filters, up to 2 used oil filters, you can get a free replacement filter and a free oil recycling kit. So if you work on your car, go pick up a kit. It's worthwhile. You save some money doing your oil change and also allow you to get rid of some of those used filters. And the last item that I just want to mention on Saturday, June 24th. So that is about a week and a half from now. The city will have a booth at the 2nd annual Cella Pride Festival. It's at Hollydale Regional Park in Southgate. Thank you, Mayor Cortez.
Thank you, City Manager. Moving on to the consent calendar, does any member of the council or successor agency wish to pull any item for separate discussion? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve? May I have a second?
I'll second.
First by Councilman Barsina, second by Mayor Pro Tem. City Clerk, roll call vote.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Barsina? Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Councilwoman Pulido?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Vice Chair Sanchez?
Yes.
And Mayor Chair Cortez.
Yes. Motion carries. Consent calendar is approved. City Manager, discussion item number 11.
Thanks again, Mayor Cortez. This item is the proposed fiscal year 23-24 budget. What we normally do as part of our budget process here is we develop the budget, put it together, bring it to council at the first meeting in June with detailed information, and then the plan will be to bring this back at the next council meeting for budget adoption. We have a pretty lengthy presentation here that will be put up by our Administrative Services Director, Manuel Carrillo. I will turn it over to Manuel to go through the presentation. And as he goes through, feel free if you want to stop and ask some questions on any of the slides, and I'll add a few pieces of information as well as we go through. Go ahead, Manuel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Okay, Mayor Cortez, Mayor Pro Tem De Leon Sanchez, Councilmembers Pulido, Barsina, and Chavez, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present this evening our proposed budget for your fiscal year 23-24. Here we have a slight overview of some of the key components of our fiscal year 22-23 budget and the upcoming items for the 23-24 budget. For fiscal year 22-23, we are projecting a year-end surplus of 1.5 million. For fiscal year 23-24 is projected to have a preliminary surplus of 951,487 as of June 30th, 2024, based on estimates. The proposed budget for 23-24 incorporates the recently approved 3-year labor agreements with the various labor groups throughout the city. And of course, the water fund continues to run at a deficit with the treatment system as the treatment system is being implemented currently. Here we have our initial adopted fiscal year 22-23 budget with revenues of 38,801,000 and expenditures of 38,663,000. And we anticipated a preliminary surplus of 168,000, which is adopted for 22-23. At mid-year, we forecasted increases in both revenue and expenditures, resulting in an expected surplus of 1.9 million. At the end of the current fiscal year, we're projecting a surplus of 1.5 as of June 30th, 23. On this slide, we have our projected general fund balance as of June 30th, 2023. At June 30th, 22, the general fund balance was identified at 30,344,000, with the projected surplus of 1.5 identified at 6/30/23. We project the general fund surplus at June 30th, 23 of 31,894,000. For fiscal year 23-24, we are projecting general fund revenues to come in at approximately 42,439,425, with general fund expenditures at 41,487,938, resulting in a projected general fund surplus of 951,487. Here we have a breakdown of some of the primary revenue categories where we are expecting significant increases. Most noticeably, the bicycle casino, property leases, sales and use tax, Measure A add-on sales tax, as well as interest income. Here we have a graph which identifies the top 6 revenue sources for the city, and based on the calculation, they make up approximately 87.86% of the general fund revenue for the city. Here we have a graph that identifies the some of the historical revenue figures for the casino. One thing to notice is, of course, the significant dip which was seen during the 2021 year, which is, of course, the height of the COVID pandemic. But of course, it's recovered quite significantly to the point where we're projecting an all-time high for 23-24. Here we have a breakdown of the proposed general fund expenditures by category for fiscal year 23-24. We are seeing increases overall. Personnel services and contractual services make up approximately 89% of the general fund expenditure budget. And here we have a breakdown of personnel expenses by category. As you can see, the projected increase in salaries due to the recently agreed MOUs between the city and the various labor groups, as well as the increases in corresponding CalPERS expenditures. This slide provides a bit of a historical perspective on the funded full-time positions in recent history, as well as what we project for 23-24.
Manuel, if you pause on this slide just for a minute, if I can just explain some of this from fiscal year 22-23 to 23-24. So what we're showing in 22-23 was adopted by the council as part of last year's budget process. During the mid-year, so between that time and now, there have been additional positions added. And if you just kind of starting from the top, if you notice community development, we had a housing specialist, and also we're requesting an office assistant for the housing division there within our community development group as part of this year's budget. The police department added 2 school resource officer positions that are fully funded by Montebello Unified School District. And also as part of last year's budget, 1 position was approved, and assuming we could fill a position, we were able to fill a second one as well. So that's incorporated in there. And then in the public works department, we added a superintendent and a senior secretary. So all of those changes between 22-23 and 23-24 were approved mid-year, plus 1 that we're asking for in this year's budget for total FTE count of 154.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. This slide provides an estimated overview of proposed salary adjustments in 23-24 for a few positions that were identified. City Manager, I don't know if you wanted to expand a bit on this.
Sure. Thanks, Manuel. So these are requests that just going through, over the last 18 to 24 months, looking at positions that we've had difficulty with recruitment or retention, and then also comparing to positions within the city and then within other cities nearby. So this is a request that's for the most part coming out of the city manager's office to help with retention in some cases and also recruitment in others. So there are about 11 positions in here that we're requesting for adjustments to be made for. And I'd be happy to provide more detail than what's already there. There's a lot of detail there. On average, the position is probably about a 10% increase on each one. Thanks, Manuel.
Thank you. This slide provides an overview of the contractual services portion of the general fund expenditures. For 23-24, it was approximately 10 million or 24% of the general fund expenditures. Some of the more significant expenses in this category include psychological services related to PD services, CCW background check expenses, as well as vehicle maintenance costs and fuel. Other noticeable areas include public works related expenditures such as industrial waste permits, engineering services, other tree and landscaping services, facility maintenance and repairs, and equipment rentals as well.
And Manuel, just to remind the council and for everybody that's listening, so when we put the budget together, we look at the anticipated cost increases or additional services that the city is going to need over the fiscal year. The majority of these items come back to the council for approval before any money is actually expended. So just to remind the council of that as well. This gives the authority to budget for this budgets for the money and creates the funding and the resource availability. And then we come back to the council for actual approval for execution of contracts.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. This slide provides an overview of the departmental supplies category of the general fund expenditures. This accounts for approximately $1,036,000 or 2% of the general fund expenditures. Department supplies increases and of course, increase and decrease amongst the various departments. Some of the more significant for this upcoming year would be copier leases, rain supplies, which appear to be a significant portion of the upcoming projected expenditures. This slide provides an overview of capital outlays, a category of the general fund expenditures. This accounts for approximately 1.3 million or 3% of the general fund expenditures. This includes public works administration vehicles, PD facility improvements, PD IT hardware and software infrastructure improvements, and other service vehicle investments. Other capital outlays increase are offset by reductions of other departments as well. So just to give you an idea, of course, it can run in a cyclical way where, for example, one department might have a need for 1 year, and then another department, well, they've had those needs met, so they really don't have any requests for that year as well. So it kind of goes and comes as the need arises by departments. This slide provides an overview of transfers out to other funds, the category of the general fund expenditures. This category accounts for approximately 2.2 million or 5% of the general fund expenditures. This includes Ford Park and golf course operation subsidies, as well as increases to retiree health costs. Here we have the total debt service category of the budget. This shows the city's total debt as of June 30th, 2022. Now, the reason we're identifying June 30th, 2022 is because this is actually part of the audited financial statement every year. This is something that gets reviewed and assessed by the independent auditor. So basically, they provide us what's essentially a snapshot in time of what those outstanding debts are for the city at that given moment in time. The following table, this pie chart provides a breakdown by department of the city's general fund expenditures.
And man, if we can maybe pause here,
Yes, of course.
We usually focus on this one. Obviously, in the blue, there's the police department. Generally, I think we will off of the bat say, oh, the police department is about 50% of the general fund, but over the last 4 or 5 years, that percentage has come down. It's been as low as, I think it was 44.7 last year in 22-23. This year it's 45.9. Again, a significant increase on there. If you just look to see why did that go up? Again, we added two police officer positions. Even though they're fully funded on the revenue side, they just increased the expenditure side of it. So they pretty much completely addressed that increase there. Beyond that, it's pretty stable. It's a split among all the other departments. Everything's pretty stable from the previous year.
Thank you. Now, this graph, of course, shows the same information, just in a different format, just listing out the different expenditures by department. The following table shows the proposed expenditure totals for all 35 of the city's the city's funds, which of course includes the general fund as well as other special revenue funds, capital improvements, enterprise funds, which of course mean water and golf, and successor agency funds. So the total for 2023-24 is projected to be $66,041,737 for 23-24.
Manuel, if you can just pause in there. I generally every year try to make a point to the council for residents or stakeholders that are listening. So we oftentimes talk about the general fund. That's our more discretionary funding. That's about 41.4 million. But the actual dollar amount of services that are provided by the city in any year is usually about another $20 to $25 million beyond that. And if I just use special revenue funds as an example, so this is where you get a lot of your road improvements and things of that nature. And same thing with capital projects funds. It's where you get new playgrounds. The aquatic center would be budgeted out of there. So it's easy for us to say our budget is $41.4 million, but that's really very specific to the general fund. The actual total expenditures for the city are $66 million as budgeted.
Thank you, sir. And here we have the water utility fund, which is expected to lose $1,105,000 in 23-24. By the end of 23-24, the water utility fund is projected to owe the general fund an estimated $8.2 million at the end.
And then if you can pause on this one. So the water utility fund, just to give some, I guess reminder there is the city runs a water fund for about 30% of the residents in the city of Bell Gardens. It had been underfunded for a number of years. The fees had remained the same since 1994. Fee increases were approved. And at the same time, the state came out with new standards for how you report for potential pollution in a water well. And so the council's decision was to not produce water from that well and to buy water that's more expensive, surface water, but has zero to near zero contamination of it. And so what you're seeing here when you see this deficit or projected to owe 8.2 million in that text box is years of underfunding. And then currently it's $1 million a year for the extra water or the clean water that's being purchased for the residents that are in the city's water system. Several months ago, about 2 months ago, the council approved a project where we're seeking funding for about $6.5 million to clean up the water well so that we can produce water from the well that's been treated that is as clean as the surface water, which would save about $1 million a year. So in the meantime, this water fund is not allowed to just completely be forgiven the money that's owed. So we keep an accounting of it. And the deficit is still at about $1 million per year. And the net owed to the general fund is about $8 million.
Thank you. Finally, I would just like to thank our accounting and payroll staff for their efforts in helping to put this information together. Quite lengthy, as you can see. This does conclude our presentation. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that council might have. And thank you very much for your time.
And I think just before council, if I could just say for overall, when you look at the budget in any government agency, probably in businesses even, you want to look at the revenues, you want to look at expenditures to make sure the revenues can sustain the expenditures. You want to look to see what do you have in your savings, or in this case, it's your fund balance. And so in a perfect world, your revenues match your expenditures and your fund balance is growing or is at least at a level that could sustain you if you were to lose some revenues catastrophically, similar to what happened here when COVID hit and the bicycle card room was closed down. So you have all of the makings for the 4 or 5 bullet points that you would look at for municipal government to determine whether or not there's a financially sound budget process going on, whether the actuals are actually resulting in financially sound results. And I think across the measure of all of those bullet points, that's what the city of Bell Gardens has had and continues to have with this recommended fiscal year 23-24 budget. Thanks. And thanks to Manuel for the presentation. I'll turn it over to council now.
Questions, comments from council?
Thank you so much, Manuel, for that presentation. I had a couple questions. I'll kind of take them through the order through the presentation. I noticed that the in lieu motor vehicle fees are down. I think it was down. Is there any explanation for why?
I mean, that typically is a projection that we get from HDL. That can vary either way. I mean, for example, there have been years where we've had lower than expected amounts, but then after the fact, we get increases. So really just the projection for that is just trying to get a stable historical figure and then not try to deviate too much from that where we're establishing expectations which might not happen. So just try to be stable on that end.
Okay, sounds good. Another thing in regards to public works, I noticed that it had a breakdown in terms of full-time employees per department. I think that there wasn't any shaded blue on the public works sector, but maybe a city manager, you can, I don't know if you know what I'm referring to.
I think the shading was just a visual choice
okay, gotcha.
I mean, we can make it uniform for the.
No, I was just because it was the only one that didn't have the.
Oh, no. So it doesn't represent anything specific.
I don't know if anybody else noticed that, but that was the only one that didn't have the blue. And I was like, I know we have 28. It said 28 as the full-time employees, but it didn't have any of them.
Oh, no, it wasn't meant to mean anything specific. It's just the coloring that we selected at the time.
Perfect. Yeah, I was a little bit worried there.
No problem.
Does this take into account, I know a while back we had an addition for, I think, a public works manager. It takes into account that employee already.
Yes, council member, it was a public works superintendent and a senior secretary position. And those are included in these numbers. So any position that has been approved by the council since the last year's budget is included in this budget, and also any salary or MOU increases are also included in the budget. And then also any requests that we've included in this budget are all inclusive.
And then this may be going to the chief in regards to PD. And just to add it, because I remember I saw it gave the breakdown in terms of, I think it was like 44 officers, and then it went to 47, I think within the last year and a half, give or take, since we made that decision. But I'm curious to know, one of the issues was about staffing, right? It was difficult to staff these positions. Were we able to staff those positions in PD?
At one point in time, we had the applicants and conditional offers out there, but we've since had another 2 retirements.
Okay. Thank you. Other than that, I think this may be a more specific one, but I saw it and it kind of threw me off, and I'm a bit curious. And maybe the public works director can maybe answer this. I noticed that on the contractual services and the general fund expenditures presentation, it said public works pump man.
I believe that's a vendor it's a vendor that's utilized by Public Works for.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Other than that, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much.
Sorry. Any other questions from council? No? Okay, I'll go ahead and motion to receive and file. May I have a second?
I'll second. Person can take it.
Councilor Barcina seconds. Roll call vote.
Thank you. Councilmember Barcina. Councilmember Chavez. Councilwoman Pulido.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Vice Chair Sanchez.
Yes.
Mayor Chair Cortez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. And we're moving on to council member comments. Councilmember Barcina.
Can you hear me? Yes. I apologize. I had to be wearing a mask because I'm still recovering from a cough. I had a really meaningful and deep speech prepared, but seeing that people already left, I'll just say thank you for coming out here and being involved civically. I don't really usually see almost anyone that was in here today, but I'm glad that at least some topics get you guys out here. And I think that's what it's all about. It's about you guys being out here, speaking up, but you know what it's also about? It's about communication with your families, with your council members. One of the things that I heard is, oh, we voted for you. You promised this, you promised that. Let me tell you something. If anybody would have asked me about marijuana, my opinion is I am open to considering it. If anybody would have asked me that, I would have said, I don't oppose it. So for somebody to come up here, I take it very personal that they're calling me a liar. My beliefs, my perspective on local government, my political belief, everything is very consistent. So I would appreciate it if when you guys come up here, not you guys, just anyone that's saying that I'm lying and that I told them this and that, I beg to differ because that's not the way that I do my business. And I think that's also why I got elected. And I think that's also why I'm here, because I don't beat around the bush like that. I do what I say. And if you ask me my opinion on anything, I'm going to tell you my opinion. But I'm always willing to listen to you. I am here because you guys elected me. So from here until this issue gets resolved, I will make myself available. But here's the thing. If you just want me to listen and be quiet, I'll do that. But if you want to know my opinion, I also have an opinion, and I'll be glad to share it with you. Because you know what? Exchanging opinions and perspectives, that's the way that we grow as people. It's not a monologue, it's a dialogue. We need to learn from each other. And that goes for your people and your own families too, your children. You know, a lot of people have issues with their families. Are you listening to your kids? Sometimes people don't listen to their kids, you know? This idea that marijuana is going to go away if we keep prohibiting it. You know what? When I was 12 years old, I was offered marijuana when I was 12 years old. And guess what? There's marijuana being sold everywhere in Bell Gardens already. And it has since I was a child growing up in Bell Gardens. So that is a reality that we need to consider, that marijuana is not going to go away if we keep prohibiting it. It hasn't worked in the last 20 years or more. It's not going to work in the next 20 years. So we're looking at different solutions here. None of our minds are made up. We are continuing to listen to you. I will continue to do that. So as long as you respect me, I will respect you. If you don't respect me, I don't know what to tell you. If you're gonna be coming out here calling me an idiot or a mierda and all these things that a gentleman was saying, I am not obligated to talk to you if you treat me like that. I didn't sign up for this job for people to use foul language on me and harass me as a council member. I'm letting you know right now. But if you treat me with respect, I will sit there with you, I will listen to you, and I will tell you what I think. And who knows, my mind is flexible. My mind, I consider your opinion. That's what I'm here for. That's my job. So again, thank you for those that stayed all the way to the end of the meeting. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me because you guys are here. You guys are learning about the budget. It's about money, guys. You know who makes the most money right here? The chief, the city manager, top level people. You know, we need to see more people like you and me in these higher positions. That's what it's all about, right? So keep coming back, talk to me, give me a call. I'm here to communicate with you, for us to learn from each other and grow as a city. So thank you for listening. I didn't want to talk too much, but unfortunately I did. Hopefully it wasn't too bad, and have a good night.
Councilmember Chavez.
I'll join in, my council member in saying that I didn't want to talk too much, but I talked too much. Real quick, thank you so much for the meeting, everybody. Thanks for the community for coming out. I'm going to start off with a couple things that have happened since the last council meeting. I know we talked about Memorial Day. Want to acknowledge that we had a great memorial celebration at our park, Veterans Park. And then after, I was able to attend a luncheon for our American Legion Post 465 for our veterans. Great event, great turnout. I'd love to see potentially maybe more collaboration with our American Legion that we have locally here in Bell Gardens. It's a jewel to have that post. So if possible, if I can give direction to our community services, maybe for Veterans Day, we could do something that aligns with them as well. So collaboration with American Legion Post 465 down Clara and Priory and Eastern. So I want to touch on that. Want to recall everybody that's watching. Don't forget, for your students, for the kids, we have a scholarship deadline coming up on this Thursday. So make sure you submit your application in time, and then also the personal statement if that's part of it. Earlier this month, I was able to attend the League of California Cities event for the Cal Cities meeting that we do monthly. Luckily, we were talking about smash and grabs happening across the county, really across the nation. Smash and grabs, essentially, when someone goes into a store, they just disconnect a bunch of things, purses usually, or something like jewelry, and then they just walk out. And it's very tough for security to do anything. So we were talking about different approaches. Our chief was present there, as well as the Southgate chief of police was also present. We also had Assemblymember Marisucci present as well. So just great collaboration and great dialogue in regards to smash and grabs. Since then, we also had our graduation for our high school. That was a great event. It was last week. A great, amazing ceremony. Great to be back, and really enjoy spending time with the leaders, the future leaders, right? Those students and their next journey in their life. This week, we actually have our employees graduation. I know we have a couple of students that work for the city, part-timers, and they're gonna actually graduate, they graduated or they will graduate from their school, whether that's high school, community college, trade school, you name it, university. So that's great. So it's gonna be this Wednesday. So for all the part-timers that are watching or full-timers that we have that are still going back to school and getting their degrees, whatever they may be. Thank you so much for everything you do. Don't forget, this Thursday, we have our Past Action Heroes concert. Those are always great. I'm excited to see that. It's an 80s cover band. So it's gonna be at the park. Those are always fun. So this Thursday, and then finally, on Friday, we have our STAR program meeting. So that's exciting. I know a lot of the community has been asking about the STAR program. We've had meetings every once in a while, but now it seems to be permanent from now on. So I'm glad to see that happening. Other than that, I want to talk about a couple of things pertaining to the cannabis topic. And I did write a couple notes. Obviously, it's a difficult topic. Right. It's a difficult topic. I think not for myself or all of us here on council, unlike other issues that we've taken upon, whether it was rent control, whether it was street vending, whether it was parking, this is one of those topics where it's not necessarily one side is out coming out. I mean, there's both sides coming out and saying the pros and the cons against it. Right. I think most of the community that came out, if not all the community that came out, was very against this issue of cannabis dispensaries. Right. There's been a variety of different interactions and public comment and gathering public input since our last meeting. Right. Since our last meeting, we had the initial discussion of whether to even talk about it. And then there was the planning commission voting 4-1. And then now it's being brought to us here. And then from this point on, we will have one more meeting in the next council meeting as a second public reading. So, I mean, it's a difficult decision. I think for me personally, when we talk about cannabis dispensaries, I think, and I've had many conversations with different folks that have cannabis in their perspective cities, right? And their sort of approach to bringing cannabis into their city, right? Our neighboring communities, not too far from us, that have this sort of industry, right? Whether it be Commerce, Maywood, Linwood, you name it, right? And these are our neighbors. So it's been an interesting conversation. I want to point a note to say that whether or not we legalize cannabis dispensaries in the city, there will always be illegal cannabis here. I want to make that point clear, right? Whether we say no cannabis or yes cannabis, there will always be that other market, right? So, at the same time, we also have to acknowledge another big contributor to the same sort of side effects that cannabis has is alcohol, right? Nobody really wants to have that conversation yet in our society, right? When we talk about liquor stores and the impacts that has on our community. Why is it that in every other side of the community of Bell Gardens, we have a liquor store, right? We have 12 liquor stores in a 2.4 square mile radius of our city, right? Who's ready to have that conversation about liquor stores in every corner, right? But at the same time, right, we're talking about cannabis right now. I'd even make the argument that alcohol is just as bad, if not worse, than cannabis, right? I hope that we as a team, and I say team, even though in this case, I was that one that voted no, I still consider myself a team. I think we all work together, right? We're a council, and this is going to be brought on. We're going to have other issues that we may disagree on, right? But it's about unifying and being able to move on. So I hope that in the future, we take upon an issue like alcohol, right? And see what other options we have. Because just the same way, I put a timer just in case, but it seems like I went over. With that said, I'm just gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you so much for the meeting. Thank you for the community for coming out. Appreciate everyone. Thank you, Padre Nawar, as well, for coming out. So with that said, gracias. Thank you.
Councilwoman Pulido.
I just want to thank everyone for coming to this long meeting. I also want to wish a happy Father's Day to all of our parents for next Sunday, right? So happy Father's Day, and also not Marco, he doesn't have any kids. And a happy belated birthday to Jorge, because I think he turned 21 again last Wednesday. So thank you so much for being here.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Your voice matters, and I do appreciate you taking the time to be here. I said this before and I say it again. I do not take this position lightly at all while I'm up here. As a public servant, mayor pro tem, and school administrator, I'm entrusted with the well-being and education of our community and our youth. I believe that this ordinance, when implemented with responsibility, can have significant positive impacts to the broader community. I'd like to address the issue of student safety. By legalizing and regulating cannabis, we have the opportunity to remove it from the illicit market where quality and safety cannot be guaranteed. And I've seen this time and time again within my students. A regulated market ensures that products are tested, labeled, and sold in a manner consistent with established safety standards. Additionally, the ordinance provides an opportunity to enhance education and prevention efforts within our schools. By acknowledging the reality that cannabis does exist in our societies, does exist in our schools, we can establish a regulated framework for cannabis. It is important to note that while the ordinance promotes responsible adult use, it includes strict regulations to prevent access to minors, robust age verification systems, clear advertising guidelines, and strong enforcement mechanisms that are essential components of the ordinance. By implementing these measures, we can minimize the risk of underage consumption. It's gonna happen. I'm at the schools. I know it happens. I am there. I see it every single day. I don't need to be reminded because I deal with it every single day. But these dispensaries are for adult use only. So when you're bringing students into it, you're bringing children into it that we're gonna sell and put these dispensaries for students, I will be the first one to tell you that is not it. We are doing this for adult use only. So when campaigning, I promoted that I was open to looking at all revenues of resource for our city. Why? Because we highly depend on the bicycle club. And we saw what happened during COVID when it got shut down and our revenue and our funds depleted. So that is the reason why. Somebody asked, you want to know why? This is why I decided to do this. Many of the surrounding cities in Southeast LA have implemented cannabis ordinance and already have dispensaries and they've had success. We don't come up here and just vote on things without doing the research. So that's the other reason. The state has already provided grants to certain cities. They've also ensured that safety and regulations for cannabis storefronts will be implemented, strictly implemented. So I'm going to continue to advocate for the community. We may agree to disagree on certain things, but just know that my best interest is at heart always for my community and especially for my students. Yes, students are number one priority to me. You can talk to anybody that knows me. They are going to tell you that students and education are the core of me. I also want to ask city manager to please follow up on former council member Jennifer Rodriguez for the $29,979 that she still owes the city. So I know that that's something that she's here promoting, but let's not forget all the things that she's done to our city as well. So if we can follow up on that. I want to thank the staff and my colleagues for all their hard work and dedication. And once again, community, thank you for still being here and listening to our comments as we listen to all of you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. With regards to my comments, it has been a very long meeting. Thank you, all of you, for hanging in there. Staff, thank you for all the work that you do every single day. Community, please join us in the next couple of events that we will be having and also promote for your kids to apply for our scholarship. It's something that we've been doing for the past couple of years and we hope for it to be very successful. And then Director, has the period closed for the banners, for the graduate banners?
We put a deadline of June 9th. We have about 50 applicants that we received, so we're really excited to get those posted. But if there are interested participants, then we encourage them to please let us know. We'd love to give them a banner too.
Beautiful. So upcoming, you will be seeing around the city all the different high school graduates posted where we currently have our LGBTQ banners. Now you will see high school graduates. Thank you, everybody, and have a good night. We're going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 9:15 p.m.